Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Can you hear me well just by showing hands like that? Physical hands, I mean, not the virtual hands. Thank you very much. Thank you. Let's start this session, and we are very pleased to welcome a guest speaker, our distinguished guest speaker for today is a manager of interpreting services. She has ample experience in managing those services, and I thought it would be very great to make my students in contact with a person like Evi, who will be showing them the road to a successful career in the market of conference interpreting. So she will be giving them tips and very practical ideas on how to be successful on the market. Evi is a close friend of mine, and I see how intelligent she is in managing human resources, people, and how organized she is. So when I saw her CV, I really knew that she has something to say to my students, and she is really the right person here to take them in this journey to skills, competencies, and so on. She will be giving examples from her own experience, but she is as an interpreter and translator, but also she will be describing the market as an employer. Evi Xydia is the conference interpreting manager at On Call Interpreters and Translators, where she manages the conferences that take place in Europe and Africa. Evi completed a 4-year BA in translation, French, English, and Greek at the University of Corfu, Department of Translation, Interpreting, and Foreign Languages. She holds an MA in Translation Studies with Intercultural Communication from the University of Surrey. Evi started working as a freelance translator and interpreter in 2005. In 2008, Evi worked as a full-time interpreter and translator in DRC, Congo, in Africa, and then moved to London, where she started working as a project manager in translation in a translation agency. After 2 years, she moved to a different company working as the interpreting accountant manager at the private sector. In 2016, she started working at On Call, where besides organizing conferences, she also assists in tender writing, business development, social media, price setting, and innovation research, which all require up-to-date skills. That's why I would like to encourage novice interpreters and students, my own students in particular, to ask questions related to those skills: how to write a tender, how to be successful on the market, and or writing a CV. I think she will be speaking about that also in her presentation. Evi is dedicated to offer the best possible experience to both clients and freelancers before, during, and after a conference or an event. So this is our guest, ladies and gentlemen. I am very pleased to welcome her. She will be speaking for 15-20 minutes in a presentation that she has prepared for us, and then we are going to open it up to discussion, a Q&A session. Without further ado, I hand it over to you, Evi. You have the floor.
So good afternoon all. First of all, it's a great pleasure to be actually presenting for the University of Tunis. And Hammouda is a friend of mine. We've worked together in the past, and I accepted this invitation just because I really appreciate him as an interpreter and as a businessman and a professor as well, and as a photographer, because most of you should probably know that he's a photographer as well, a very good one. So it was with great pleasure that I received his invitation, and I accepted to attend this event. What I can say is that what Hammouda is doing, providing you with so many academia persons, so many specialists, translators and interpreters, and also LSPs, is something very valuable. I know that you might be very busy with courses at the moment, with your exams and everything, but when I was studying as well, because I was in your situation, I was in your position, I was a student of translation and interpreting 10 years ago. So at that point, LSPs wouldn't speak to us, rarely some translators and interpreters, and most often it would be professors and academia people. But now I think you have an amazing opportunity to learn more things from the practitioners of the profession. So take advantage of these meetings and ask them as many, and ask me as well, as many questions as possible, because these people shouldn't be afraid of sharing their knowledge. You're not stealing something from them. You're actually, you're the next generation. So you're going to be the main people we will be working with. So it's definitely worth sharing with you this knowledge. So I will share a quick presentation with you about On Call, and then about some tips I can share with you on how to become the preferred suppliers, interpreters, freelancers of an LSP or a direct client. Let me just start sharing my screen. Okay, and this is perfect. Okay. Just an overview of the company I work for at the moment. So actually On Call was created in 1984 in Melbourne by an interpreter himself. That's why we are very different from other companies in the market, because it wasn't an entrepreneur or a translator or a businessman that wanted to create the company. It was an interpreter, Turkish, English, Australian, that wanted to create a company to offer conference interpreting. So we specialize in interpreting, which is something different normally from other companies that they mainly offer translation. So at the moment we have more than 85 in-house people, full-time employees, in the 9 offices all over the world, mainly in Australia, because we have there 5 offices, and then we have the Brussels and UK office, 1 office in Netherlands and 1 in Turkey. The last ones were recently opened, actually, because of the tenders we've won recently. Just an idea of our services. This is actually the services most of the LSPs would normally provide, but then you will see that in the end of the list there is a lot of tabs for a lot of points for interpreting, because we specialize, as I told you, in interpreting. So we offer conference interpreting, public service interpreting. This is medical for hospitals and councils normally. We have our own lightweight equipment, so we travel all over the world with this equipment, and we don't have to rent it from the countries we cover events there. We have developed our own platform for telephone interpreting, liaison, and video remote interpreter, again, liaison, not conference interpreting. And we offer remote interpreting for conferences, but through partnerships. And as well as sign language. The sectors we mainly work with are, of course, NGOs and European institutions, then councils and hospitals in the UK, and more specifically, the refugee sector for the European institutions and environmental for many of our Australian clients. And then there is a detailed list of other sectors we work with. So just our actually conference interpreting department, we cover more than 200 conferences per year all over the world in more than 50 countries on site. We have, when we say professional conference interpreters, we mean at least with a BA and a master's degree or a master's degree in conference interpreting, plus minimum 2 years of experience. And we always choose the interpreters based on their residence and their expertise. And of course, as I told you before, we use our equipment, the digital lightweight one, and we have trained technicians all over the world. This is because I'm responsible for the Brussels and the UK office. This is just an idea of the countries of the European Union we have covered on site events with our equipment. So you can see it's almost most of Europe, I have to say, and hopefully in the future it would be also the remaining parts. And this is just a moment. And this is actually a list of the African countries we worked for in the European departments. And you can see that we have some really weird places like Cape Verde that we've been there. I've personally traveled there in order to cover the event with 18 interpreters. And then the last one that we covered was Djibouti, which is a very small country in Africa. And I had to be also on site. So a very unique let's say characteristic of on-call is that we always provide on-site coordinators if we have to cover more than 3 languages, because it's a necessity for the client. Some pictures for some events that we covered in Switzerland, in Turkey, in Belgium, in Malta, in Portugal, in Spain, and in London. So you can have an idea. And now we're going to the most important part, which is actually the agency and client game. So how are you going to win this game with the clients? And what, as the LSPs, we mainly expect from you as regards the attitude, as regards a lot of things, the way you work, the key features. So very quickly, I want you to, let's have a brainstorm session before I give you the list. And if you want to share with me, just think about it for 2 minutes. And whoever wants to share with us, what do they think that an LSP or a client expects from a linguist, from an interpreter or a translator to be or to do in order for them to be on the top of their list. From the time you start working with them, from the first time you contact them, till the time that you accept a job or you cover a job or you actually send your invoice.
Yeah, let's do it. So by showing that blue hand, please, who would like to take this question? By showing hands. So who else? Well, who else? Okay, well, go ahead.
I think commitment and discipline will be the first.
Okay, commitment and discipline. Who else? Wisal.
Well, I believe the interpreter must have good public speaking skills. They must certainly master the language or the languages they are interpreting from and into. Also, they have to have a good knowledge, or at least an overall knowledge about their body, the body language aspects, and of course, they have to be committed.
Okay.
Okay. I can just Hammouda can also comment whenever they reply if you want.
Please go. Yeah. Sure. Go ahead.
So because I will show them the list, but as regards the commitment and the discipline, What do you mean exactly by commitment? Because if the first person that replied, I wanna, because if you are a freelancer, don't forget you are a freelancer, so you shouldn't be bound to follow only one agency. Or if it's a client, it's different, but you're a freelancer, you will never be a full-time employee unless you work for the United Nations. So in which sense you mean the commitment to be, so can you give me an idea?
Wisal, what do you mean by commitment?
Of course. By commitment, we mean to honor the agreement in terms of being there in the right time and date, probably if you're traveling, or so you have to honor your word.
Perfect.
I think it's clear.
Yes. Yeah.
Not necessarily with one agency. You may be having many contracts with other agencies, but you may be available, or you have to be available for each one at a time. Yeah.
That's clear, Wisal. Abir?
Exactly.
I think the main expectation that an LSP is looking for from us as interpreters or linguistics is that we should be experienced enough, that we have knowledge about the subject that we are willing to work for, and to have all the information.
Knowledge. Okay,
Yes.
good. So if you have no... yeah, go ahead, please.
So probably in this sense, you will see it also later in the list. It's very important, actually, that you accept the jobs that you are specialized in, or you have a lot of thorough knowledge, or that you think that if you study, you can perform. If, for example, you are a medical mainly interpreter, and suddenly it's a very scientific, a very specialized scientific subject matter, and you say, oh, I'm going to do it, and it's aviation, but you've never done aviation, I wouldn't accept this job. So you have to have the courage to say no to a client and accept the ones that you will end up specializing in specific sectors. So try to specialize not only in one, but in 2, 3, but also have the courage to say no when you're not specialized enough.
True, yeah, have the courage to decline. Good. Amin?
I will add professionalism. Interpreter should be a professional. The way like he presents himself, the way he looks, just to appear like as a professional. Professional means a lot of things. Skilled. He knows how to deal with situations. He knows how to deal with equipment, and being aware. I will just summarize it, which in one word that have been said. Also, experience.
Okay, I have to say that I totally agree with you, but there are interpreters in the market that they think that they are professional, but they are not at all. Just because the way of thinking and the way they approach the market is wrong for a client. Like there are interpreters that they will give their business card to a client while they are actually given a job from an LSP, which is wrong. So these things you will learn them as you go, but it's good if you also ask other interpreters in the market to share it with you, and interpreters that you know that they are respected from the market as well.
True.
That's exactly what I mean by experience. I mean, they besides, I mean, that they have done the same thing before. I think that we need also to gather some feedbacks. If we can have some references, here we go. If some of the colleagues or people that this interpreter worked with before, and see how like their feedback. Of course, if it's a good feedback, that's a good ad. If it's not, it's something else. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
That's very good as well, yeah.
Taqwa, Jandoubi?
Key feature, I believe, is stamina. One of them, the ability to deal with fatigue and cognitive load and other things. To give himself or herself.
Taqwa, we lost you, I think.
Yeah, I can't hear her. I don't know if you got the first
we
part.
lost her, I think.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so shall I repeat?
Yes, please.
Okay. I said stamina, the ability to deal with fatigue and maybe cognitive load and else, to keep himself or herself updated with what happens in the world, and also communication skills with colleagues and other people of the same field.
I didn't hear very well again. Sorry,
So
Hammouda,
it is
did you?
good communication with other colleagues and to keep abreast of what is going on in the world, events and so on.
To be tech savvy.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a very good point. Yeah, you have to be, you're an interpreter and a translator theoretically, because a lot of times interpreters are also translators. Translators cannot be so, it's not always the case that they will be also interpreters. So you have to be aware of the technology. For example, at the moment, whoever is saying that they're not using remote interpreting platforms or they're not getting trained, I think they're not making any money.
Yeah.
If they are pure interpreters. So these are some things that you have to be aware.
True. Do you like we take some more suggestions, Evi?
If you want, we can take 2 more and then continue.
Okay, 2 more.
Yeah.
Lisa and then Mohammed Salah. Thank you. Lisa.
Hello.
Hi.
So I think an interpreter should ensure confidentiality and being able to work under stress and being able also to adapt to a variety of situations.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Yeah, a very good point. The confidentiality actually should be already something you will have signed with your LSP. So you should be signing a contract with any LSP you're working with and for, because there will be the terms and conditions, and then you can check before accepting a job what's the requirements. If you see something that you don't agree with, you can tell them no, because it goes against what I believe or against what it's normally requested in the market. But yeah, confidentiality is a very important part, especially at the moment with the social media, online, recordings and all this stuff.
Good. So there are 2 hands, in fact. So Mohammed Salah and then Sarah bin Alfi. We finish with Sarah. Mohammed Salah.
So greetings, and the 2 features I would say are confidence and authenticity. Like someone who looks like he knows what to do and what is expected from him. Like someone with whom the client can or would feel at ease. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
I think the most important features is to know how to deal with stress and difficult situations as well as difficult speakers, because it's not evident to keep up, especially for a long time, with a difficult speaker who gets really I'm sorry, I'm so slow. Who gets really fast while speaking, or okay.
The point is
it's
clear.
spot on. Yeah, it's spot on. I can just comment very quickly.
I think what is really important as well is to be a good listener, because and to know how to deal with the idioms and the metaphors as well. Yeah, that's it.
Good,
okay.
Thank you.
So last to comment then, and then I will show you the very important list.
Yeah.
So first of all, about the confidence, I can say that confidence is important, but don't forget that an interpreter should be invisible. What do I mean? You are in a booth, they should never see your face. They should, if they look at you, that means there's an issue normally. So you are an invisible voice, because if you are so good, they have to think that the person speaking is speaking with your voice and they are looking at this person. So I would say the confidence is important, of course, to book a job, but if you don't perform, you're going to lose this client. And
can I ask you here, Evi?
Yes.
Can you think of a situation in which there was really a problem with one interpreter making himself or herself visible by doing something wrong or not performing well? Can you tell us a story if you can recall one?
I can tell you for sure, because I had this. So there is this interpreter, it doesn't matter the language or whatever, but because I normally attend the events, so I'm on site on purpose, I like to see how people react and how they perform and how they treat their colleagues and their clients and delegates and everything. So there is this specific interpreter that whenever this interpreter is in a booth, she is moving her hands too much. She's not a speaker, she's an interpreter. So I was there for 2 days and she was doing in the booth like this, and you could see that people were turning towards the booth, looking at the booth, because she was moving so much and she was touching her mic as well. So it was obvious that there was a problematic sound while she was talking. She was tapping her hands on the desk, moving papers and all that. And we had a complaint. And I did, before the client complained about how she reacted, I did tell her, because I saw her doing like that, and I told her, can you please calm down? It's too much what you're doing, and this is a medical conference, a very serious one. So yeah, this is what, and she's very confident normally, I have to tell you.
Yeah, I know.
She's a very good interpreter as well. I mean, when you listen to her, if she's not stressed, it's fine, but this has to do also with the
This is
stress
her
factor.
way of doing it.
Yeah, but it's not very nice.
It is not. It is not.
No.
That's why perhaps we need to observe ourselves also.
Yes.
And do you recommend that interpreters, and especially novice interpreters, to record themselves or to seek help and advice from their booth partners? Because what you are seeing is not what your booth partner can see. So it is always good to have insights of others on you.
Yeah, definitely. This is a very good point. Actually, I think especially when you start interpreting, when you start entering the market, it's very important, because you will actually get to use these bad habits if no one is giving you some feedback, because someone mentioned before feedback. Feedback is very important from clients, from colleagues, from your professors, and from other students. So if you see something that is wrong, welcome the feedback and tell them, do you think I should change? I totally agree with you, Hammouda. So
Thank you.
yes.
Evi, do you mind if we take 2 questions on this?
No. You go. You continue. Yeah, it's fine. That's why I'm here, to answer the questions.
Yes. Amin and Doha. Amin, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hammouda. My question is, you evoked another issue, I will say, or subject, which is your partner in booth. There have been sometimes issues with the partner. You know, as conference interpreters, sometimes you love to work with a certain teammates, and in the other hand, I've seen a lot of complaints sometimes about conference interpreters are not comfortable working with other teammates. How, as a coordinator in a agency who does interpreter services, how do you deal with these issues if you have colleagues not preferring to work with a certain type of colleagues? How do you deal with this kind of situations? Thank you.
Thank you. Let's take Doha, and then we are going to go back to this issue. Doha, please.
Okay, following what you have just said about the interpreter moving her hands too fast, I felt like you were talking about me, because when I speak, I use my hands a lot in order to compensate for the stress that I'm feeling inside. So my question is, shouldn't an interpreter be comfortable enough, because they're already under a lot of pressure during doing their job? I mean, if I were an LSP, I would have let my interpreters dress the way they want, use stress balls, maybe move their hands, move their feet, and anything just to let the stress out. I mean, to avoid the cognitive load, as we said.
Yeah, Evi, over to you again.
Okay, so first for the booth partners, what I've seen, to tell the truth, because I've been working with conference interpreting organization for the last 10 years, what I've noticed is that people perform better when they feel well in the booth with their booth partner. So what we normally do is that we would contact an interpreter that we trust a lot, and we would ask them, who would you like to work with? So we don't cause this friction by just telling them, you're going to be in the booth with this person today. And they will say, actually, we don't speak to each other. Don't you know that? For example, because it happens, of course, it happens in any market that there might be some disputes or some challenges in the past. So that's what I normally do, to tell the truth. I liaise with interpreters and I always ask them, if you're happy to work with this person before putting them in a booth with the other people. And if there is an issue, a huge issue, I swap them with another event or with something else. It's very important for us and for me to make sure that the interpreters are happy before, during, and after the job, because we support the clients, but we also support the interpreters. If you don't perform, guys, the client is not going to receive a good service. So every LSP should be actually protecting you and supporting you. You're not just, the instrument of the interpretation of their service. You're equally important as the client is. So, and you have to fight for that, and you have to make them respect you. As regards the moving hands, I really like that one that you said, that I feel like I'm seeing myself, for example. Look, this is not bad because you're just starting now, but there are jobs and jobs that you can do some things. So if you move a lot in the booth and because of moving, you are causing noises, and this is in the mic. So if I do this, you can hear it. If I do this, you can hear it. If I do this, you can hear it. So it's annoying for the delegate that is listening to you. So you're not actually performing, you are stressing the delegate, and this makes you a bad interpreter. Even if you're a very good one, if you interpret well, this doesn't have a good impact on the client, and it doesn't give a good image of you. So what I can tell you is that I do understand that you are stressed, but you're just starting now. What I can share with you is that when I started doing presentations 5 years ago, I was so stressed because I didn't have any experience, and I had to be in front of 50, 100 people, 150 people, and I would stress, I would just tremble, and I said, it's experience. After some time, it's gonna go away. I have to look into this. I have to record myself. I have to calm down. I know what I'm talking about. I like my job. Why should I be stressed? So you should start writing down all these things. And after 2-3 years, because you love your job, you love what you're studying, it's gonna go away. But just keep an eye on this. Say, I wanna change that. I wanna calm down, and it will change.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, should I show you the list?
Please.
Okay, there we go. There, you mentioned most of the things, which is very good because you're still studying. So this means that your professor is very good. So first of all, one of the most important... Paragallo. So one of the most important things is your CV. So the first time you contact a client or an LSP is your CV and the first email you're gonna actually send to them. So if your CV is actually not very neat, it's not very straightforward, they might not take a lot of time into investing in you. And I will tell you shortly what do I mean in a good CV. Don't worry about that.
Yes. And how, in what sense it is neat?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
So then we also, this is a list of things I will check and my team is required to check. We will look into you registering with a local association or a global association like AIC, like for example in the UK we have CIOL and ITI. Hammouda, which one do you have in Tunisia? Is there a specific association?
It is not
for
very well
translators?
organized in Tunisia, but still some of us are members of AIC and some international organizations, yes.
Exactly. So things like that they show that you have invested and you have spent some money into registering in these organizations. And also this means that you are following webinars and meetings and you keep updated onto what is happening in the market. Then industry-related profiles, in this case, I mean PROS, Translators Cafe, and then also I would always check the LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is a treasure at the moment because you can't lie easily. People will comment or people will say, no, he didn't work for us, because it appears when you say I worked for this company, they can say that. So it's not very easy for you to lie. in LinkedIn.
Evi, sorry, what are the other credible sites and like LinkedIn? Can you mention, in addition to LinkedIn and pros.com, perhaps?
And Translators Cafe is also very good. And then, of course, associations or their websites. For example, if you have created your own website because you're a freelancer LSP, you know, you're a freelancer, so you create your website. So we will check that as well. And then LinkedIn, I don't think there is any other credible, I mean, I wouldn't check Facebook together, or Instagram or Twitter. Twitter is fine. Twitter, I will check it, but no Instagram or Facebook. This is too much of social media.
Can I request my students on your behalf to call them and encourage them to keep away a little bit their investment in Instagram and Facebook, and look into those more credible sites like LinkedIn and Translators Cafe, and spend more time registering there. Try to create a profile over there.
Yeah, it's very good.
Thank you.
And they can create an amazing database of connections in LinkedIn that it can even lead you to a job. For example, my last 2 jobs were all from LinkedIn. They just contacted me directly and they told me, we've seen your profile, it's very good, would you like to work for our company? So Instagram and Facebook for your personal usage, LinkedIn and Twitter for working reasons, I would say. So then, of course, we mentioned before, being professional and being trustworthy and delivering always the best you can. I mean, and in this case, that's when you need to know your specialization. You need to accept a job that you are good enough, or that if you spend some time studying, you're going to perform. If not, it's better to have the strength to say no, even if it's going to give you 2K in 3 days. Say no, because the client is going to really appreciate that you deny the job because you weren't ready, and you say, look, I'm better in this, but I would definitely consider that in the future if I study more medical, for example, or scientific. Then, of course, attention to detail. What do I mean here? It's like we said before, you have a 9 o'clock booking and you arrive at 10 and you say, I'm sorry, I didn't check the address properly, I was late. Same with translations. You have a deadline. You have to very carefully always read the brief in both interpreting and translation and deliver accordingly. And if you see that you're going to be late or you're going to delay translation, it's better always to inform in advance the LSP or your client, because we really appreciate that if you inform us in advance, because I can contact my client and inform them as well, than telling me at the very last moment or after the deadline. So being proactive than reactive is much better. Even if you are late, even if you cannot deliver something, even if there is a problem, this is understandable. You are a human being. It can happen, as far as it doesn't happen always. If it happens once or twice, it's understandable. So just try to inform us in advance whenever there's an issue. Another thing is the attitude. You also mentioned it, 2, 3, or 3 people of you. So it's the way you dress, it's the way you react in front of the client, it's the way you reply you send your emails. For example, if you've started working with us for 2 months and you say, sorry, I didn't see it, I was actually out for, I don't know, I was having a shower. You can't tell me that. It's not professional. If you know me for a year and we're friends and we talked a lot on the phone and we might exchange a lot of messages and things like that, yes, you build a personal relationship with the project manager. But try to draw a line between professional and non-professional, between building a friendship and talking to a project manager. Then be responsive and communicate responsibly. I mean, you accept the job, don't bombard the project managers with questions. Again, it's attention to detail. Read very carefully the brief and only go back to the project managers with any questions if needed. Of course, there might be some questions, but I know some translators, for example, or some interpreters, that they come back and forth with 10 questions, and they don't realize that we have 20 projects per day, so at least 80 interpreters per day, that if everyone was like that, we wouldn't have any time for the client that is paying you in the end, because the client is giving me the job. So I have to spend some time to the client and to you and to the project. So just think a little before you send an email. Time is the most important thing we have in our days, to tell you the truth. So then we mentioned being tech savvy, update, always keeping up to date regarding any technological, initiatives or innovations in regards to the profession or webinars, and try to get a training in order to see how the system is, discuss it with your professor, with your colleagues, and comment on that and say, I prefer this, no, I prefer that. It's very good. Then another thing, you don't have yet the experience, but you will get to hear a lot of things in the future. For example, we have interpreters that they say, I can only cover this job if you provide me a business class flight and a 5-star hotel. I'm sorry, you're not the prime minister, and we don't have the budget, and the client doesn't have the budget. But they are limits. There is the minimum you should require, like, of course, an economy class flight, but a 3-star hotel minimum. So there is always a limit, but you should always also try to ask things that they are logical. Being flexible for us.
Evi,
Yes.
how do you react to demanding interpreters in this sense?
How do we react? First, I have a laugh because I say, oh, not again. Let's see what we're going to do here. And then, to tell the truth, I prefer to give them a ring, because I think interpreters really like to speak on the phone. It's in your mentality. And then explain them the situation. If I see that they don't understand and they insist on something crazy, then I might just leave it. If not, normally they do understand. I explain them why we do something, and they do understand. But I had cases that they were, for example, I can tell you, there were interpreters that they were asking a fee that it's not even asked by, I don't know, a UN interpreter with 30 years of experience, and they told me, I'm going to charge this because my language is very rare. And I said, what does this mean? But this rate doesn't exist in the market. This rate is half of it in the market because I've been in the market. No, I'm going to charge this. Okay, I don't think the client will choose you, because we were supplying CVs and rates per interpreter. It was an arbitration matter. So normally, just for you to know, for arbitration and disputes in the courts, we supply specific CVs per interpreter. And she said, no, they're probably going to accept. Of course, the client came back to me and they told me, but this is more than a barrister, more than a solicitor. So, yeah. I mean, always I tell them that I disagree in a nice way. We discuss it. And then if they agree, or if we can find the middle line, of course, because sometimes I will negotiate if I really need them, or if I think that they might have a point that sometimes, of course, we make mistakes and we might not take into account something like the fact that their address is not what we thought and they live outside of London and it's 2 hours far from Gatwick, and if they fly there, they will arrive very late in the night, so they can't take public transport. And yes, I will pay them the Uber in this case. So, for example, that's an idea that I was mistaken because I didn't know the right address, for example. So, the next one, respect the policies and the terms and conditions. Always, as I mentioned before, sign a contract with all the LSPs so you're covered and you can check in advance what they are offering. And also respect the terms and conditions, because if they want, they can take you into court. So be very careful when you're signing a contract. Then the social media that I very quickly mentioned before, you always have to check with the client if they want you to publish their event, because some clients cannot publish by law their events. So you cannot just say, look, I'm here in Belgium and I'm covering this great event. No, you have to check with the LSP, and the LSP has to check with the end client. Same with your direct clients. You cannot just post it and say, I covered this. I had a client that was very strict. They said, you cannot publish anything, a European agency. The feedback part and the advice part. So the feedback, as you said before, because it will make you better and it will help us as well. So you might tell us that, look, I think that this event would be easier for the client and the delegates if you reorganize it in such a way, which has recently happened to me. For example, an interpreter was supposed to do consecutive, and then she told me it's not going to happen with consecutive. You need to do simultaneous, and I'm going to do, if it goes up to 1 hour and 30 minutes, I'm going to cover it. And she did it, and she was totally right, and the client was super happy. So we have to also listen to you guys and your suggestions. And for the advice, for example, this is for a booth partner. You can say, look, this is not a good interpreter. I had issues before. And or you can say, I prefer this booth partner. And of course, the end, go the extra mile. Not always, only with clients that you are committed with, as you said, that they have given you a lot of work. They're very good clients. They respect you. So go the extra mile with clients that they are worth it. Any questions?
Any questions so far? I can see Taqwa and then Muhammad Salah. Taqwa. Or is it an old hand?
Hello?
Yeah.
No.
Go ahead, please. That is new, brand new. Go ahead, please, Taqwa.
Yes. Okay, so thank you for being here, Mrs. Eva, and we're very honored to have you here today. I have two questions. Okay. My first question, which you already answered, about CV and how to write a good, CV, especially for the newly graduated interpreters. Added to that, I want you, if possible, to give us tips on how writing a cover letter and the reasons for rejecting one. And the other question is about the performance of interpreters. How do you guarantee the performance of interpreters? Do your contract provide coaching? And if so, is it only does this only apply to your company or the most companies in the market? Thank you.
Yes, and I would like to add something else to this question, Evi. Can you give us concrete examples, of course, without disclosing any information, private information, cases of interpreters who have been rejected by you, their CV that has been rejected, and on which grounds? So, and let's take now Muhammad Salah. Aisa.
Greetings. So you mentioned that you only hire interpreters with 2 years of experience or more. So my questions are, first, do you mean that experience is all? And secondly, how to build the foundation for a professional life or path when, for instance, we don't have a local association in Tunisia, and you mentioned pros, translator cafes, and so on. But the dilemma is they will do the same and will look into the interpreter or translator background before proposing him a project and so on. As the saying goes, gives a man fish and you feed him for a day, teach man how to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. So in short, how do I start from scratch? And thank you.
You start at the university, Muhammad Aisa, and this is very well good starting point, having someone taking you through the skills, what you do, and little by little. Let's have Dhuha Mabruk again.
Hello again. There is this tendency on LinkedIn, I don't know if there is also on other professional sites, of video resumes. And also there's another tendency of math skills, as in math skills on the CVs, things that have nothing to do with your job or the things that you want to do, but they are said to attract people that are looking for candidates. Also, do you encourage unsolicited applications, or should we wait on, so to speak, play it hard to get? So that's it.
Thank you.
I think I should reply before
Please
I forget
go ahead.
the
Yes,
three
yes, yes,
questions. And then okay, so let's start with the first one about the CV. I have some tips following this one about the CVs. So don't worry, we will have 2 pages that I will share with you. Then the cover letter. So actually, the tips for the cover letter is kind of similar with the CV, but it's, let's say, more. It should be more concise. So you should refer to your university for me, and it's not a cover letter because it's weird, because with conference interpreting, you are not applying for a job. So this is I don't, to tell the truth, I'm not used to cover letters in the UK or in Brussels that I work for this job. I'm used to an initial email saying I would like to work for On Call. I'm a conference interpreter. I've studied there and there, and I've done. I have this experience till now, and I'm specialized in this. And I would like to register with you and tell me if you can give me any jobs. This is a very nice, straightforward email we normally receive, because a cover letter is normally something related to a specific job for a full-time employee. So to tell the truth, yes, it's good, but maybe it's good for a specific big project. But it's very rare that someone would post an LSP would post a very big conference interpreting project, and they want. So I send your CV. And then also, I'm replying also to the third question, to the third person that asked the question. So yes, of course, an unsolicited application should be sent, because so send as many CVs as possible to all the LSPs and say, look, my name is Evi. I am an interpreter and translator in Greek, English, and French. I would like to work with you. I studied there. I have this experience, and this is my CV. And let me know if you need anything else from me. So I would say this. And then about the performance that you ask, how we guarantee it. Specific projects have, let's say, requirements for training, because you are trained by the university. So Hammouda is doing this training job. If I understand what you're asking, but a company is not a training institution. The training institution is the university, and we expect and we are happy to see that the universities are doing such a good job that when you come in, we have to train you in platforms, in how to do more, in giving you the reference material, in the attitude, things like that. But you shouldn't be expecting the LSPs to train you. Actually, they will train you in the ways you should be working, but not in how to become an interpreter. You are an interpreter when you are a graduate, of course. That's why you studied for 3, 4, and 5 years. But regarding the performance, what we normally do is that we provide as much as possible reference material. We make sure that all the interpreters
Evi, I think we lost you. We need to wait a little bit. So excuse me, I'm going to check Evi's availability.
Hello.
Yes, Evi, you're back.
I think it was my connection.
Yeah. I thought so.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Luckily, you are back. So yeah.
Apologies for this, but sometimes we have a lot of issues. Okay, so I was saying that about the performance. So what we normally do is that we make sure that we provide as much as possible reference material. We take care of the accommodation and the travel, so the interpreters won't stress with this part. And then we team them up with their preferred booth partner. So these are a lot of things that they can actually help them in performing very well. And we of course, we choose the best interpreters for each project. So I won't choose someone that doesn't have experience for a very technical booking. Hammouda, you asked about examples for interpreters we rejected in the past. We reject interpreters in the team if they haven't studied interpretation. So there are people that they call me and they tell me, I want to become a conference interpreter. And I tell them, okay, what have you done? And they tell me, I interpreted for some friends and at this event once or twice. And I tell them, no, we live in 2020. You need a diploma. The only case that we work with people that they haven't studied conference interpreting, it's people that have already 10 years of experience in conference interpreting proven. And you can see that they even worked in the UN because they were in schools at that time. So yes, we do accept them, and some of them are even in NAIC sometimes that they haven't studied, but they have so much experience. These are amazing interpreters, so you do accept them because you know that they've been in the market for a while and they are very good. Another thing to reject them, it's the attitude. So if they have been causing problems with other colleagues, if they have ruined the project, with a client, and I'm thinking I must have something because they've been for example,
go ahead. Yes.
There were cases that the interpreter had a personal opinion and he shared it with the client about something, and they're talking, you should be doing this in front of a dispute with another client. You cannot do that because you are you are invisible. You don't have an opinion as an interpreter. You interpret what you listen. Otherwise, you become a content writer, you become a solicitor, you become a public speaker. You don't become an interpreter. An interpreter is invisible. They don't have an opinion while they interpret or next to the client, unless it's for the performance, for organizing the event. This is different, but not for the actual event. That is what, and what else?
So, Evi, what is the most serious mistake an interpreter can commit during the event? I mean, during the event, what is the most?
Walking out of the booth while interpreting because they are too stressed. For example, it has happened.
Really?
So they were too stressed. Yeah, they were too stressed and they walked out of the booth. You can't do that. Or they insulted the client. Or they treated very bad their colleagues. They didn't go there on time, and then they made a whole mess, and the client was really annoyed, and they didn't even excuse themselves. Another thing, I mean, you can make a mistake, but you have to actually understand that if you apologize, we will accept it.
Yeah, but all of these are attitude related. Let's say
interpreting, I'll tell you, interpreting wise, I take for granted that I provide interpreters and we provide interpreters that they are good. If you get to work and you're not a good interpreter, it's the mistake of the LSP or the client, but I would never provide a bad interpreter. So that's why I can't comment on this. I'm always, I mean, 90% of the cases I'm confident about the interpreters that work for me. So it's attitude-related issues.
But hasn't happened in the past that you were a little bit disappointed by some interpreters? You recruited them for some assignment, and then the profile is really good, the CV is good, and you've dealt with them before, but then you received a negative feedback.
Yeah, there was a case, for example, that an interpreter, French English, was recommended by another interpreter that I really trust. It was very medical, and it was into French, and this person is native French, actually, if I'm not mistaken, no, native English, but she was living in Switzerland and in Belgium, so her French was amazing. She couldn't perform. The other interpreter had to take over every 10 minutes. I was feeling so bad for the other interpreter. She's amazing in medical as well. So yeah, in this case, we took her out of the database for medical. She shouldn't have accepted the medical conference. Yeah. And you could see that it was stressing out the other interpreter.
Sure. And in terms of rights, how did you sort it out for the interpreter who took all the time interpreting? In terms of pay,
we paid her more.
Yeah.
In the end, because she had to actually work. She was taking over because she couldn't accept the fact that the other wasn't performing. So yes, so we had to pay her a little more. Another case that has happened, because now that we are discussing it, I can remember of more situation. There was an interpreter that has been an interpreter for 30 years, and she was covering a market research event. So, the fact that you don't have an actual booth, I don't know if you've ever explained to them how is the setup for market research. So there is a virtual booth. You sit behind a glass, like the detectives ask the questions, or in police stations, that they cannot see you when you actually ask them what happened. So they were performing this kind of market research for 2 hours and a half every group session, and she couldn't perform. There's no booth. You are next to the delegates. They are normally 8, and there is an interview in the room, a market research interview. So she couldn't perform, and the interpreter called me to tell me, Evi, she doesn't know how to interpret simultaneously. Send someone else. It was a 3 days booking, and I sent her someone else in 2 hours.
Wow.
I replaced the interpreter in London. It was a very difficult situation because this client was very challenging as well. So this makes us also look stupid, to tell you the truth. And she was in one of the associations in the UK, the official ones.
Yeah.
So
over to you, yeah, if you'd like to continue the presentation.
Yeah, and let me just check something because
there are other questions, I think.
Yeah, just a moment. Let me just say the 2 years experience that you mentioned before.
Yeah,
I agree with you that you have to somehow gain this experience in order to start working. But there is a way. You start working. You do volunteering things with Amnesty International, with other organizations, with cultural agencies and organizations, cinema, or whatever you like as a hobby, which is even better because you will find an interest. And you will contact the association. You will say, I would like to volunteer as an interpreter or translator in order to assist the organization. And they will remember you. And the other thing is that I will give a job to you if you are a graduate, but a smaller job. That's what I mean. I can't give you a conference, but I will give you a smaller job. And a very smart thing to do is start contacting interpreters in the market that they've been for 10 years, 5 years, 15. I wouldn't say the old interpreters, because 60 years old. I would say more 50 years old, 40 years old, 30 years old, not experience, the age. Because the ones that they are 60 years old, they have this, it's rare to find an interpreter that they are so old that they will welcome a new interpreter. Younger people are more welcoming. They will assist you. I've partnered up a lot of old interpreters with new interpreters, and now they work together and they are really nice together, and I'm very proud of it and happy. So trust me.
So what is your explanation to that, Evi? Is it intergenerational dispute?
with the old interpreters, because you know the ones that they were with the 80s, 70s, they have this diva approach. We are the best, 5-star hotel, business ticket, we should have a glass of champagne. There is, guys, trust me, there is still this belief that they are very special. But because now there are schools of interpreting, there you can study interpreting and become a very good interpreter, and you don't have to be rich to study interpreting as it used to be. It was something that only rich people could normally do because they had money to study. So now it's different, and these people that, for example, like you, that you are at this age, you are much more welcoming to take by the hand a new interpreter and work with them, and you know, and give them more information. So I've seen a lot of interpreters in the UK or in Brussels that I introduced them to younger interpreters, and now they work together as both partners. And these interpreters were just graduates. So you can definitely do it. You just need to actually contact a lot of people in the start, go in webinars, attend meetings of the associations, of trainings, and then you'll find the people. Don't worry about that. And the last thing, for the local association, it's not my fault. You have to create the local association. You have to actually try to actually create a system in Tunis. Why not? Arabic interpreters and French interpreters are so much wanted. I mean, it's like the wanted sign that we need Arabic interpreters and French interpreters. So yes, go for it. Create an organization, an association. I would definitely say that it's needed. And the last thing is that I remember one of you asked me about LinkedIn and the video resumes and the skills that are not related. Look, I won't check a video resume because I like to see it written, maybe because I'm not used to it yet. And in LinkedIn, you see everything. I've worked there, I've done that. I won't have the time to check the video resume. And it's too general. You won't have it specialized. So I will go through LinkedIn, I will see your page. You can send it if you require it for a specific job application, yes. But normally I would say your LinkedIn profile, the first page is the most important, and ask for references from professors, from other interpreters, from previous employees, from direct clients. This is a treasure, I'm telling you. People are checking those things.
Good, yeah.
I think I've answered.
You've covered, yeah, you've covered all of the questions. Good.
Okay, so what I'm going to do now is that actually I'm just going to show you very quickly.
Can you share again the presentation, Evi, because
yeah.
it has disappeared when we lost you. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the screen. There you go. Share. Okay, let me just check that. Okay. Change it now. Okay.
I can see a picture. I can see a picture that I was in that picture. I think.
Yes, it's true. But I didn't know you wanted to see that. Guys, so here, if you can see the cursor, if you can see my mouse. So this is an amazing event in Switzerland that we covered a year ago. There were 38 interpreters, French, English, French, Spanish, and Arabic and Russian. It was a UN agency that we were working for. And you can see 2 on-site coordinators and 38 interpreters. It was an amazing team. Yes, so Hammouda, I think you were taking the photo.
Say it.
Or Kara was taking the photo in one of the cases. So now, in your CV as a conference interpreter, so these are tips just not for a translator, it's for a conference interpreter. So first of all, a lot of interpreters forget to put some basic information. And of course you will put your full name, but some people forget to say their active and passive languages. It's very important. I will read that you are native Spanish, but I need to know which are your A, B, and C languages. Then your contact details. I know that some people don't want to put the residence, but as well, it's very important for us to know if we can fly you or if you are close by to an event, to a specific venue. Then, of course, your qualifications, your accreditations, and then if you are a member of any of the associations. So these have to be very straightforward on your CV. And then I would suggest, if you want, of course, if you don't, or you might prefer something else in your CV, create a spreadsheet and you add all your events by mode, by nature of assignment. It was with a booth, telephone, video, face-to-face, and then the subject matter and the duration. But this is not so important normally. And this is because if you are requested by an agency or a client to show your experience on a specific subject matter, you don't have to worry about that because you will already have all the information in the spreadsheet. You will just say medical, simultaneous, and you will find straight away. It's very important for clients to see that you have experience. Then, if you have any translation experience, so what happens? Sometimes I have interpreters that they haven't done anything for a specific subject matter. Recently, I received a request for dental implantology for 7 languages, which is very rare. It used to be a trend in conferences in the 90s, but it stopped, and now it's coming back because of the implants. So not a lot of interpreters have experience, or there are these interpreters from the past. So there are a lot of interpreters that they have covered translation in dental implantology. So for me, it's a tick if I know they're good interpreters, because they've done the translation already, so they know the glossary. Then if you have any IT skills, so if you have been trained in any of the platforms, if you're using Trados, if you're using any CAT tools, as well, it's important. And then if you have been following any CPD courses, continuous professional development courses. So any summer courses, any workshops, any trainings, webinars from the associations, from other interpreters. There are interpreters, for example, I know that Maha, this Arabic interpreter, is very good. She's doing online webinars about platforms, and other interpreters. Some webinars are free. So since you're students, maybe follow the free ones, and then when you get some money, I know that it's challenging. And then, oops, let's go back, some last tips. So, as I told you before, for the social media, never share the client's names, even in your CV, if you don't ask them if you can do it. This is very important. And especially if don't post it in LinkedIn or social media, but for those, in your CV you can have it, but not if they have to send it to another client. You have to ask the client. Then, keep track of your assignments, as I told you before, dividing them mainly by subject matter, because that's going to be the most important. Update your CV regularly. Again, follow the KISS rule. Keep it short and simple. So no more than 2 or 3 pages. I think 2 pages is the perfect actually length. Depending on the client's request, add extra information via email. So when you get a request, always ask more questions initially to see whether you can cover it or not. And save a copy of your CV on your phone and on your laptop, because a lot of times you are having interpreters that I tell them, I need your updated CV or your CV to submit it to a client. Evi, I'm on a job. I don't have it. I don't have my laptop with me. You're an interpreter. This is the first thing we ask you, your CV. So keep it handy. Yeah? So this was very quick. And then I said already to Hammouda that we can play with 2 case studies that they did happen. So it has happened that on call. I have like 6, 7 here. So he can share them with you at the course, and you can elaborate on them, and I will give him the solutions. So these are 2 CVs, that one that is good and one that is bad. This is, if you can you see the CV?
We can see it, but we cannot read it.
Let me just check.
The characters are too small to be read. Too small to read.
Let me just try something. Now?
Can you a little bit zoom in more?
More, okay.
More, please.
Let me just move it. Now?
Much better, yes. Yes.
Okay, have a look.
Okay.
do you see some, what do you think about the CV? So this is the first part. I can put the full name or the...
Yeah, of course. So what are your comments?
Anything else?
Please, by showing hands. Duha?
I think the first thing is the dates. So I see 1994, then 93, then 96. I think we should start by the most recent to the least recent in a CV.
Good. Abir?
I think there are a lot of information, and maybe shorten them or something.
Okay. Taqwa?
I believe that the CV should be kept concise and simple, not organized in paragraphs like this.
Okay. Good. Over to you again, Evi.
Yeah, so very quickly, he didn't confirm the languages, so I didn't even know what languages he's covering. He just told us that I'm doing this, this, and this. And he hasn't studied interpretation in 1990, which I think it's fairly recent not to have studied, but okay, you have experience and you've been working as an interpreter, but I'm missing your A, B, C languages and your specializations, and he's just referring to his most recent assignment. He's a good interpreter, but his CV is not a good example. That's what I wanted to say. So, and the next one, it's this. Which I can tell you for sure that it's very good. So you don't, so I can tell you, so I want you, because I want you to see at least one case study with an event. So she has put whatever she's done, education and experience, conference, what she's doing, her languages, and everything.
Let me ask you here, Evi, there is a format and a template for perhaps good CVs, which is Europass, and you can design your CV online following some steps, and people see that they are professional, neat, simple, and including all the necessary and perhaps relevant information. What do you say about Europass?
I like, to tell the truth, I used to have Europass before. It's just that the last years I've updated it very more like a LinkedIn approach. So you extract the LinkedIn from LinkedIn your CV, and it seems a newer version. But Europass is a very good, one of the top solutions at the moment.
Thank you.
Definitely suggesting it. Yeah. So should we play with one case? I don't know, because it seems, because they are interacting a lot. I know that it can take longer.
But let's do it, yeah.
Okay, we can do a case study, and then they can ask me if they want some other things, and you can use the case studies for the class. Yeah?
So let me not step in order to cause further delay and lag. So as you see, I don't know whether you see the hands, the one who is showing hands first will take the floor.
Okay.
So don't worry about this, Evi. This is for them. So first in, first out. We are going to apply the first in, first out. As you can see now, Wisal first, Duha, etc. So
okay, you do it. Don't worry. I said that.
Okay, no, don't worry about it. Yeah.
So
what are the instructions?
The instruction is that I'm gonna tell you what happened, and then I'm gonna ask you to think how you would have reacted. Yeah. Yeah. So we had this event in Geneva. Actually, it was the event we were discussing about before from the picture. So the thing is that one of the interpreters was running late for the third day. So we had the 3-day event. The third day, the first session in the morning, one of the three interpreters, there were three interpreters in the booth, was running late. And
sorry, I think you gave me a clue about which booth you are speaking about.
of course, it was with the Arabic, but you weren't in this booth because we had 9 Arabic interpreters. So so it was the Arabic booth starting the session on Friday morning, the last day of the event. So it was 9:30 that we were starting. The third interpreter wasn't there. I asked the colleagues to text this interpreter if they know where this interpreter is. I texted the interpreter as well. No answer. And I always do it at least 30 minutes before. So I was really worried. The interpreter didn't reply at all. And at some point, I received a call from my client that was at the reception saying that, Evi, there is a delayed interpreter for the morning session, and she is here. She said she was lost. She's delayed for her session, and she's been very rude to my colleague at the reception. The reception was the client, my direct client, the UN agency. So the issues here are, of course, the lateness and the attitude and rudeness of the interpreter. And the client that was annoyed, and that her booth colleagues were annoyed because she was late and they were on time. I want you to tell me what you would have done at this point if you were in my position. So the manager, the organizer of the conference for its client, and if you were this interpreter's booth colleagues, even before she was officially late, let's say.
Excellent.
So think about it.
So think about it and put yourselves in the shoes of a conference interpreting manager. How would you react? We'll give you 30 seconds to think of it.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, and first in, first out, huh? So I can see Duha now. Who else? By showing hands. Lisa. Abir. Okay, Duha, please.
Okay, so I think if there is a backup, I would have called the backup by then, and I would issue a warning, whether oral or written, to the interpreter, and I would deprive them of doing the task that day, at least, and understand what the issue was. I mean, ask them if something happened, maybe something personal happened, intervened with their attitude and their punctuality. So yeah, that's what I would do.
Okay. Would you like to take them one by one, Evi, or we take the three of them and then you react later?
Since it's the same case, let them speak and then I'll tell them what we did.
Yeah, excellent. Lisa.
Okay, so I will try to manage replacing that interpreter, and if that isn't possible, I might take the task myself.
You take the task yourself. This is what you said.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Okay, if you are taking the task yourself and you are not an Arabic interpreter.
Yeah.
So
that might be a problem.
yes.
Because I'm Greek, so I couldn't have done it.
She's Greek, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So maybe just manage between the two interpreters. They are already in the booth.
Okay, good. Abir, finally.
I may call for a fourth interpreter if there are 3 interpreters. Depending on the emergency that I will have, I will say that you should get ready if anything will happen. And I will talk to the late interpreter and discuss what was the late matter. Why is she late? I don't know.
Okay. And let's take Shaima.
I may ask the interpreter to
Can you come closer to the mic, Shaima? We barely hear you.
I may ask the interpreter to apologize to the client.
I may ask the interpreter to apologize to the client. This is what she said. Okay, Wisal.
Well, as the managers have a lot in hand, I would check if this interpreter was not dead, then they're fired, and I would take the blame from the client because they have to honor their commitment, and that's I think that's part of their job. They cannot. At least they should notify the manager 10 minutes before the conference so that the manager surely can sort this out, or else they don't have any other excuse. I mean, as I said, if they're not dead, then.
Good. Evi, to you again.
Yeah. So the thing is that because it was such a big event that there were parallel booths. So everyone was working at some point at the same time. So we couldn't fire anyone because they have already traveled from all over Europe and Africa just to attend this event. And they had already covered 2 days. This was the third day. So everything was going great. The event was going so well till the third day. And this was the only issue we had. So this means that everyone has been performing and had an amazing attitude towards the client and us and the event. So first of all, the main thing I wanted to tell you is that always investigate. What do I mean? Never take any quick decision. You have to check what happened. As you said, there might have been a problem, a health issue, or something with the bus, that she took the wrong bus and then anything like that. So what happened is that this interpreter really got lost the third day, which is not something that should happen because she was coming at the venue for 2 days, for the morning and the afternoon session, and she wasn't lost. So she lost the way, which was very easy because there was only one bus from our hotel for 15 minutes. So it's very difficult to lose the way actually to the venue. Anyway, another thing that was a mistake was the fact that she didn't inform us or her colleagues. This is another issue. You don't want to pass it to me, pass it to your colleagues because your colleagues are there on time and they're waiting for you. The only difference is that the Arabic booth has always 3 interpreters in the United Nations. So you are covered. It's not an issue if they rotate between them for the first hour. If it was French, for example, it would have been a huge issue. But it was Arabic, so they could rotate, and she arrived at 9:20. Actually, they were starting at 9, she arrived at 9:20, so 20 minutes later, and they are always supposed to arrive 30 minutes earlier for the sound check and to set up everything. So she was 50 minutes late, theoretically. The other thing is that what do you do with the client? The client was very annoyed because she was rude to them. So my main concern was my client at the moment. And I had to explain to the client, I'm really sorry. She was very rude even to me when she arrived. So what I did is that I took her to the booth. I told her, okay, you have to do your session now, but when you finish, we speak. She finished, she calmed down. Then I told her, you have to go and apologize to the client because what you did was very wrong. I know that you've been stressed because you were late, but you should have at least sent a text message to me and to your colleagues. So I believe that you probably apologize to your colleagues, but you have to apologize to the client. 2 hours later, I saw her going to the client apologizing. The client texted me, Evi, it's all good because she came and apologized. By the way, in the meantime, the big boss of the UN agency had talked to me and she told me, what happened? I heard that there was a big issue with an interpreter, and this put me in the spot in a very difficult situation. I thought, don't worry, we sorted it out. She will apologize, and it was a matter of a bus and the fact that she lost the stop and she took another bus. So I just want to tell you that I won't take any extreme measures because we are flexible. Things can happen, but from the other side, of course, I will make her apologize to the client because this put us in a wrong position, in a very difficult position, and I don't trust her anymore so much. So I have other interpreters that I really trust from this event because I was on site and I saw how they were working. I listened to everyone and I saw how they react and they interact. and I trust some interpreters more than others just because of this event. So this can give you a better idea. Be very careful when there is an on-site coordinator. Yeah. Anyway, Hammouda, I think now it's better if we let them ask me any last questions.
Yes.
Because probably they are very tired.
They are. But still, I know that I'm enjoying those very practical tips. Yes, any final questions before we wrap up this very insightful session? I can see Wisal, Dhuha, Lisa. Who else? Let me have an idea, a rough idea about those who would like to ask. Okay, let's take these 3 questions. Wisal first.
Thank you, Ms. Evi, or Evi, sorry. This has been indeed
Evi
really
is very easy, but try to pronounce her last name.
No, don't make them do that for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I won't even there. Okay, so my question here lays with experience. So you evaluate an interpreter based on their experience. Let's say, for instance, there's this well-trained and really qualified interpreter, yet they didn't have the chance to get a contract, to sign a contract, or to get a client. And they're really good. And on the other hand, there's this less qualified interpreter that's been lucky and got recommended somehow and got to work. So how do you basically evaluate if you got under such, I mean, you get some requests? How do you evaluate interpreters?
Thank you. Dhuha?
Thank you again for this presentation and the practical comments. Do you still have time to interpret and translate, or are you totally dedicated to the company and bringing interpreters together?
Good. Lisa?
Okay, so I have 2 questions. The first is about the contract between the interpreter and the client. So what should it cover? In your agency, for example, do you allow interpreters to interpret into their B or C language? And I just want to add that your presentation was incredibly useful, so thank you.
Thank you. I think Evi will kindly offer to share her presentation with my students.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
That's why I told you that you can also use the cases to discuss it with them during the course. It's not a problem.
Thank you very much. Yeah, over to you to respond to these questions, and then we are going to wrap up.
Let's start on how we evaluate the interpreters. Look, I think because you said if an interpreter is a very good interpreter and experienced, but he didn't get a contract, he can be experienced. He can be experienced if they haven't had a contract. You are experienced if you have covered events. You see my point? So you are experienced if you have covered jobs. So I can see it in their CV. If someone is less qualified, I don't know how it works with other LSPs. I can definitely tell you how it works with on call, and because I lead the team, there are specific requirements that if my team doesn't tick the boxes, it's not good. I mean, I always tell them, be very careful next time if you don't follow this rule, because there are some guidelines for any member of my team. So we always check the qualifications. So if someone is qualified, it's very important. And if they're not qualified, no, we're not going to work with them. Especially for people that they should be studying from the 90s onwards, because you have the possibility to go to the university and study interpreting. I have mathematicians or doctors that they tell me, or solicitors, that they're telling me that they are very good interpreters. And I tell them, you haven't studied interpreting. So if I'm good in legal interpreting, does this mean that I can actually go to the court? as a solicitor? No. Why would you be able to interpret since you haven't studied? So, in general, we actually choose and assign a job based on the experience and the qualifications. So, in our company, it wouldn't be a case that someone wouldn't get some work because they are less qualified but luckier. No. In other jobs, maybe, in other companies, maybe because of the rate, because they might drop the rate and they will give them the job. But in us, it doesn't matter. We won't give a job to someone that drops the rate but is less qualified. So I hope this answers your question. Yes, someone has asked me if I translate or interpret myself or if I'm only dedicated to organizing the team. So I did interpret in the past in Congo for French and Greek and English, and in Club Med because I was in a test restaurant, so I was interpreting for French and Greek and English, but then I stopped, and I'm only a volunteer interpreter and translator when needed. For example, because I'm Greek, with Amnesty International, I've been a volunteer. I don't have the time, to tell you the truth, to also cover events anymore as an interpreter and translator. The only thing I do at work is sometimes I do a proofreading for my colleagues for free, of course. I'm not getting paid on top for this kind of jobs. And then about the contract between the interpreter and the client, what should it include? To tell the truth, there are specific, if you want, and I think that Hammouda already knows it, there are things under AIC and also things under NRPSI that they mentioned that, National Register of Public Service Interpreters in the UK, because I know much more about that since I'm in this market. So normally it should definitely state the confidentiality, the payment, the cancellation, the non-disclosure agreement, things like that. So it's a very standard freelancing contract. It should never say things, I don't know, like if you cancel, you should pay us or things like that. But you should provide a replacement. This is normal. But just read a lot the small letters. And then about if we ever work with interpreters and they work into their B or C languages. So the UN market and the European agencies market normally works into your native only, one way. But the private market always works with A to B and B to A. This is the standard. Otherwise, they would have to pay for a pure booth, the English booth normally. So it would be a lot of money for the private.
Evi? I think we lost Evi again. I hope she can be back soon. We're going to wait until she's back.
Can you hear me? Okay. Did you hear the last part about the B and C languages, or you lost that one?
Half of it.
Okay, so we work with B languages, I mean A and B, because the private market, that's the way it works in the UK and in Europe. And C only if they have to take it from another booth, but never into C, because if you can do into your C, it's a B. That's why you can interpret into your C, because it's a B. It can't be a C if you can interpret into this language. So an LSP or a client should never ask you to interpret into your C language, because you are unable to interpret into your C language. You can only take it from your C language. So yes.
Excellent. So Evi, I can't
Yes.
thank you enough for this very generous, insightful, and informative presentation, which is in fact a workshop in which we have discussed scenarios, and it was very interactive. And I think that my students have found very practical tips that they can use in the future. So, ευχαριστώ πολύ.
Παρακαλώ.
Thank you again.
Thank you
Παρακαλώ.
very much.
By the way, παρακαλώ, I always remember παρακαλώ means de rien, means
De rien, well.
de rien, not at all, because it is very similar to an Arabic expression, which is the same meaning. Barakallahu fik. Barakallahu fik. God
really?
bless. Yes.
Then yeah, probably.
Yes, barakallahu fik. But in Arabic,
Okay.
not in Greek. And
Okay.
kalovradi.
Thank you very much for the invitation again. And guys, thank you so much for the interaction. It was amazing. It's so good to see that students are so interested in what they are studying actually. And Hammouda is going to share my email. I don't have any problem if you send an email asking questions. That's why we are here. And as I told you, always, always, always think of an LSP as the mediator. We are in the middle. We should be supporting you. And we are in the middle of you and the clients. You're not less important than the clients. So always remember that when you go out there in the market.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.